Welcome to Venezuela Insider, the only place in Venezuela for expats, digital nomads, entrepreneurs, investors, travelers, and related internationals. For more information, venezuelainsider.com. Today, I want to talk about one of the main ideas of my favorite Venezuelan economist, Asdrúbal Oliveros, and that's a term that he mentions, he throws a lot on his different appearances on media or conference and such. He's a very busy man. And he always uses the term stability on the pit. Of course, he says on Spanish, estabilización en el pozo. And what that means is that basically Venezuela just crashed. The Venezuelan economy, the Venezuelan GDP just crashed horrendously, 80% during the past decade, and we are starting to see some growth. However, he talks that on the case that nothing changes besides the status quo that we have right now, the Venezuelan economy is just gonna stay over there, and it doesn't have a chance of growing and maybe reaching the GDP level that they had on 2012, 2013. That was when this debacle just started. So we are gonna go deeper on this stuff. First, let's start by why the GDP collapsed 80% on the first place. Well, during the 2000s, we had these policies, these, let's say, quasi-communist policies by the late President Hugo Chavez. He fired most of the talent of the state-owned company PDVSA, which is the biggest oil company here in Venezuela, basically the only game in town. So he fired the well-prepared people because they were not loyal to him, and these people were engineers, accountants. I'm talking very highly skilled people with a lot of experience, and then they went to the Gulf nations, to Saudi Arabia, to Dubai, to Qatar, and also they went to Canada, Australia, and many other parts on the globe that produce oil. And some of them never get a job again. And well, that's a story for a different day. Well, the thing is, after that, the PDVSA, the oil company here, they recruited, of course, by decree of Hugo Chavez, they get people who are less skilled, less valuable, and many of them are just a bunch of idiots, I have to say. And because they were loyal, quote unquote, loyal to Hugo Chavez back then. And after that, the man that was the president of PDVSA during those years is a man named Rafael Ramirez, which is probably the biggest corrupt man on Venezuelan history. He squandered billions and billions and billions of dollars, and some even say that he squandered something around 1 trillion US dollars of oil revenue. So he's by far the biggest corrupt person on Venezuelan history. And well, right now he's exiled in Italy, and we can make a video just about Rafael Ramirez. Well, the main takeaway here is during the oil production, during the 2000s decade until 2010, 2011, there were a lot of corruption, bad policies, and a lot of mismanagement by these men, although the results of the declining oil production, we saw that on the next decade, on let's say starting the 2010s. So back then, Venezuela on the good days produced around 3 million barrels of crude oil per day, and 2.2, 2.3 were exported. Over a million per day were exported to the United States, and the United States paid in cash. Unlike some other nations that also buy Venezuelan oil, and they do it with this strange schemes, and I'm not gonna go into it. At the end, just by the mid 2010s, well, Rafael Ramirez just declined from the position. He was sacked from the position, and after that, a bunch of people were put at the helm of PDVSA, and also they did even a worse job, but mostly because Rafael Ramirez left everything destroyed and everything squandered. That's the oil production. Now, on the political, the economical and political policies, the first time were quasi socialist and such, and also there was a lot of public spending back then. And what happened is basically the fiscal side of the Venezuelan government was very irresponsible. They squandered everything. By the same time, the tax revenue is not high here in Venezuela, unlike many other places around the world. It's just like 1% of GDP. And also, don't quote me on that because I don't remember the exact figure, but it's very low actually. And the other thing is that basically the squandered, and also because there was a lot of political instability. Back then, Hugo Chavez, he was like a cowboy, he was a maverick, he was just a wild card on the geopolitical sphere. And after that, when he passed away on 2013, allegedly on 2012, late 2012. So, I mean, for the sake of the video, let's say 2013. And he left in charge the current president of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, which is even worse of a maverick for the geopolitical situation. And also, he tried to continue the policies of Hugo Chavez unsuccessfully, well, successfully for destroying an economy successfully. And back then it was price cap productions, also prices, price controls. Also, there was a barrier in order to freely exchange forex, foreign currency and such. And all of these things, all of the bad policies, and of course a lot of corruption and such, well, that basically destroyed the economy and the confidence on the country. And it was and also you have to mention the price of the crude oil that on free market was around $100 per barrel. And the other hand is that production declined from 3 million to 2.2 million and crashed until the late 2010s to just a few 100,000 of crude oil per day. Okay, so everything was a mix of a lot of things, bad policies, also the crude oil, and also at the end, I have to say the sanctions also affected the Venezuelan economy, but it was at the end of this debacle. And what happened next is that basically by 2018, just Venezuela was just a country that it was set to become a failed state. But after that, when the Venezuelan economy just hit rock bottom, the government, I have to say, they started a mediocrely decent economical policies, like they allowed the dollarization. The dollarization was made by the people de facto. However, they just allow it, something that was unthinkable just a few years prior to that. And also just, I mean, Venezuela also has a lot of value and has a lot of small entrepreneurs and also small businessmen that start building the country up again. We also have to mention that since a few years ago, we don't have banking credit, we don't have financing on the Venezuelan economy. The credits and the loans on the Venezuelan economy is just around 1% of GDP, and compared to other places in Latin America that are 30, 40, and 50% GDP, and also in the United States is over 100% GDP. But the main takeaway is that people who have great ideas and great businesses and such, they cannot grow even further if they don't access to capital. And also, you have to mention that the average Venezuelan got very impoverished. so they cannot make these huge investments like and these huge purchases like a new home or a new car or taking trips internationally and such. So the consumption just sharply declined as well. That's one of the consequences on this 80% GDP collapse and also, of course, the cost for the next year decline. Anyway, well, after 2019, I mean, there was a shift, a mindset shift on the Venezuelan population and say, you know what, I had it enough. I don't want politics. I don't want anything to do with that. I just want to thrive, to life. So what they do is starting, building from scratch, maybe some small business, some business idea, or just working on their own instead of just trying to find a good job because basically Venezuela doesn't have a lot of good jobs, good high paying jobs. I mean by that. And by the end, and the government stopped just hindering that economic growth and that economic, let's say, activity from the average Venezuelan, and that's when the economy starts to grow. Because this is one of the main important takeaways is that when the GDP collapse is mostly due to the oil economy, which is the biggest here in Venezuela, the main industry. But when the economy started to grow again, it was thanks to the private sector and the non-oil economy. I have to say by that. And also you have to add that PDVSA is slowly growing the oil production again. We hit rock bottom during the 2020, during the pandemic, on 400,000 barrels per day when we used to have 3 million barrels per day just a decade and a half ago. And right now we are on close to 800,000 barrels, which is still low compared to the 3 million, but it's way better than the 400,000 that we have just on 2020. So also we have to add that now the United States is granting licenses to oil multinationals like Chevron, that Chevron is operating right now in Venezuela, and also they were able to rise up a little bit the oil production in Venezuela and also doing a lot of investment. And other companies, other multinationals, oil multinationals are poised to reinvest on the country again and expand their operations further here on the country. So by one hand, we can expect, because nothing can get any worse, that these oil multinationals are going to invest on the oil industry and the oil economy. And also you have a bunch of talented entrepreneurs that are growing the non-oil economy. For instance, we have, I don't remember his name, his last name is Sabarce. He's a brilliant young entrepreneur that started Yomi Ride, that is the Venezuelan equivalent of Uber and also to DoorDash. So they basically the company is a ride sharing services company and also a food delivery company. And just in a few years span, the company is growth exponentially. There are a couple other companies that are doing the same and they're doing great. So little by little, the Venezuelan economy is growing again. The confidence of the people is growing again. Also, we have to mention the international flights are growing again. And also the internationals, the confidence of the internationals, the expats, are starting to grow again. Believe me, I see this every single day. So I'm actually very bullish on the economy. But in the worst case scenario is that maybe we can stay on this limbo where we are not continually declining, but maybe the growth is not going to be as high as we want it to be. Thank you for watching Venezuela Insider. Please like, share, and subscribe. Follow us on social media. If you want to work with us, VenezuelaInsider.com. Thanks again and have a nice day.